My next guest is Josh C. He is a former teacher, academic advisor, and principal of 13 years. With the average cost of college more than six figures, he has set out to show families how to save tens of thousands of dollars in future college costs by starting college early in high school. He has helped over 3,000 families create their own college and high school strategy using resources readily available to them, such as earning college credit and graduating with a college degree before graduating from high school. He's worked one on one with families and also has a step by step course, the College Fast Track Start Kit, that walks families through the exact process to start their college journey in high school. Welcome to the podcast, Jeff. Josh.
But hi, Dana. Nice to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, we'll go ahead and get started with your trench story. Tell me about a time when you were in the trenches and managed to crawl out.
Yeah, I think for me it was I I wasn't sure what I wanted to do when I was in college. I waffled like many students did, changed their major three, four, five times until I went on a few mission trips to urban centers within the state of Tennessee during my third year of college. I was on a track to be a sports broadcaster and journalism and everything that was involved, and just I came back with just this desire to work with kids in any capacity and changed my major. More or less went to my academic advisor, said, "What's the quickest way I can become a teacher?" And she was like, "Well, you can major in social sciences, and it'll tack on an extra, semester to your journey, but it won't be a lot of time, and that'll
Mhm.
get you on a fast track." So I did that and started as a teacher, and I really kind of fell in kind of by accident into the charter school world, which
Mhm.
it's similar to traditional school, but very, very different because it's built around, specific models and missions. And so I kind of fell into that, worked with middle school kids my first year, and they ate me alive, Dana. I'll be honest with you, until I kind of discovered, high school is where I really desire to be, and stepped into this thing called an early college high school. And I had no idea what that was about or what it even really meant. But I found the ad on Craigslist way many, many years ago when it was still okay to advertise
Mhm.
jobs on Craigslist, and went into that and fell into the trenches, as you call it, with what high school, as I had deemed it, was during my experience in high school, my parents, other friends, other colleagues that were now teachers in traditional high schools. And I saw just something different. I saw this idea of, why are we just preparing our kids for high school or for college or
Mhm.
post high school life, career, whatever that might look like. And there was no framework, there was no blueprint, there was nothing when I stepped into the academic advising world after, spending 3 years, 4 years actually in the classroom teaching.
Mhm.
So we had to put together a blueprint, but really what we did is we did a lot of listening. We did a lot of observing. What are our students telling us? What are our families telling us? Why did they choose our school? As a charter school,
Mhm.
we were a school of choice. They could have gone to their traditional neighborhood high school, or, whatever they were to desire. So they were choosing us for a reason, because we could provide a different opportunity. So dove into the trenches really in a big way, because I was handed a three-ring binder and
Mhm.
said, with a list of contacts, and told to basically go. It was terrifying in a lot of ways, because it was me, myself, and I,
Mhm.
that first year, with 200 kids that were depending on me, that families had taken a chance on our school and our year one operation that was unproven in a lot of ways. So there were a lot of, everything was on the line in a lot of ways. We had to figure out, is this going to be successful? Is this going to fail? Is it going to fall somewhere in the middle? What does that look like? So we put together the framework of, what college could be.
Mhm.
And very quickly, it looked like it wasn't going to be a traditional school counselor to student type of relationship.
Mhm.
I don't have a traditional school counselor background. I'm not licensed. I didn't go to school to get that license to be a guidance counselor in a high school. But for so many years, that's been the norm. It's what it's looked like in our schools. And I know many, many school counselors, and they're fantastic at what they do, but their days are spent 80 to 90% of their day on everything but college career post high school guidance,
Hmm.
because time is finite, right, Dana? And they simply don't have time to spend in many cases on those robust college experiences outside of simply preparing them for college.
Hmm.
And it's great to prepare a student for college and what that can look like. But in my experience and in my background, it's backwards.
Hmm.
We have an epidemic crisis of, the cost of college and how long it takes and is it worth it? And that ROI question has become a heated topic, especially post COVID.
Hmm.
And being in the trenches for 12 plus years in that world really helped me to see we're looking at college, we're looking at what that life can be, what that experience can be, completely backwards. It's not working as it may have worked in, 20, 30, 40, 50, 80 years ago,
Hmm.
and what that journey looked like. So we've got to take a different approach.
So, you talked to me a little bit in the pre-chat about a story about a family who lived 70 miles away,
Mhm.
who needed another option. Their local high school wasn't serving them. So, how did you find out a creative way to help the student?
Yeah, great question. It's one of my favorite stories and
Uh,
one of my just most beloved experiences. It was so we were our high school was 70 miles from the student. It's a charter
mhm,
school, just a little bit of a background. You typically have no geographic boundaries. So we weren't a
mhm,
direct feeder school like a traditional high school where that says if you live in this area or you have this address, you feed into this high school. If you live in this area, you go to this high school, etc. We had no boundaries. So basically, as long as a student lived in the state, then they could come to our high school no matter
yeah.
what. But this was the first experience that we'd had a student that had very limited academic high school options where they lived, and they hadn't been happy with their experience in ninth grade. So they approached us and they said, "We really want to come to your high school, but we cannot justify a 70-mile one-way trip 5 days a week
Yeah.
just to take classes to then eventually have the goal of taking college courses as a high school student, because that's the whole MO of an early college. It's to graduate students with something more than just a high school diploma." So I brainstormed, I racked my brain. I went to my boss. I said, "Is there anything we can do to help this student?" And she came
Hmm.
back to me and she said, "Well, there's nothing that says we can't help them. So go figure it out. Go see what you can
Hmm.
do." So there again, no blueprint, no framework, no anything. I had to just kind of get incredibly creative. And it just dawned on me that this student lives a mile or two from their local community college campus.
Hmm. Hmm.
What if we just made the community college their high school? And it's kind of a foreign concept in a sense to a family or to a student that's gone through a traditional high school pathway, but to
Hmm.
homeschool families, it's kind of the norm in a lot of it because homeschool families have been
Hmm.
sending their children to community colleges as their high school for decades, because they may even get to the point where my child is at a certain math level or certain, English level, writing level, what have you, that is beyond my capability. And I want them to experience something else that's something more of a challenge, but I don't want to send them to a traditional high school.
Hmm.
That's where the community college kind of steps in. So we kind of took a page out of that book and promoted it, pitched it to the family. I was like, what if we just make your community college your high school? You're a mile from it. You can still be a high school student through us, but you never have to travel 70 miles one way, 5 days a week. And we can just do everything we were going to do as a high school student, as a 10th grader. We just do it at the community college.
Hmm.
And they thought about it for a minute and they're like, we're in. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So then it came to going to the community college. Hey, is there anything preventing us from doing this? Do you see any negatives, any downsides? And they're like, no, not really. We've had families do this. Let's give it a shot. Come on in. So uh, fast forward and we try to strike a balance, try to find a balance.
Yeah.
This particular student was a competitive speech and debate student. So
Okay.
um, many Fridays and many afternoons they were really busy with practices and competitions and things like that, where they were traveling throughout the state and even out of state. So we were able to structure a schedule because they were on a college campus. Because
Hmm.
typically your classes aren't 5 days a week like they are at a traditional high school. We're able to structure that and meet the needs and meet really what that student was looking for as well. And kind of fast forward 3 years, the student graduated with an Associate's of Arts degree. They were the commencement speaker at the college graduation, Dana, and I'll never forget because I was there. The first line out of her speech was, I come to you today graduating with my associate's degree, having never graduated from high school. And there was
Hmm.
kind of this audible gasp and the kind of like, what's going on? I knew what she was talking about. And it's semantics in a lot of way.
Yeah.
But because colleges typically end sooner than high schools, she was graduating from college with that associate's degree because her high school graduation wasn't for another 2 weeks.
Hmm.
So it was really, really neat in so many ways because she would have never had that opportunity if she had gone through a traditional high school 5 days a week, gone through the step by step. This is how we do high school, et cetera, et cetera. And to this day, she's able to save tens of thousands of dollars because she didn't have to take all those courses at a university and saved a lot of time because she got a bachelor's degree in 2 years after high school, went on to law school, and now is a successful attorney. So it's one
Hmm.
of my favorite stories.
Yeah, that really goes to show, like, with this type of school, like you said, there are no geographical boundaries as long as families reach out to you. Anybody in
Hmm.
the state could enroll in that student situation. They were lucky because there was a community college nearby, but it just takes a little working with the community college, figuring out how things are going to work. And
Hmm.
you also you ended up starting a satellite campus near
Hmm.
that community college.
We did. So that story I just told you, it kind of sparked this idea of, well, what if there are more students and families out there that are in the same situation?
Hmm.
They want to come through our school, but they can't simply because of geography. Let's not make that a barrier. So we ended up creating there again, no framework, no blueprint had really never been done in the state. We created a what's called a college direct program
Hmm.
where it was using community colleges around the state as students as high school. And we started partnerships with multiple community colleges and multiple campuses under the idea of what we did with that student. And found a 2,000 square foot office space, a stone's throw from the community college. Very low overhead. I think we had 3 staff members, but
Hmm.
specifically on the admissions and academic advising side, where we used their community college as their high school. And we looked at all the same requirements that you need to graduate high school. We just crosswalked them with the community college objectives. Because in a lot of ways, first year or two, those gen eds, those basics,
Yeah.
those college classes can be very similar to the high school classes. So really, we cut out all the fluff. We got rid of the repeat. We had a really defined system on how we determined readiness for those
Yeah.
college classes. And we didn't turn students down in a sense, but we showed them this is what it can look like. Are you ready for it? Because it's a lot of work, Dana. It's 1 year's worth of material condensed into one semester, and that's college. But for a high school student that may have never experienced it before or hadn't experienced it before, it can be a lot. So we had a step-by-step process that was really proven, really tried and true, and it worked. And we were able to run, almost 200 students through every single year through this college direct campus, and they never stepped foot on the high school campus. And in a lot of ways, that was the kind of birth, so to speak, of the college and high school, consulting business that I run today. It's showing families, making them aware of the options that are readily available. And
Hmm.
with the student story I just told you, and with the College Direct campus, we weren't reinventing the wheel. We were simply taking what was readily available, the resources that are already
Hmm.
in front of us, but so many families simply don't know they exist. Therefore, they
Yeah.
don't know where to start. They don't know what questions to ask.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's great that there is this system for students who, might not know what they want to do in college, but also getting these credits towards an associate's. So if
Mhm.
they do want to go to a four-year college, they don't have to spend all that money and take all those prerequisites.
Exactly, exactly.
So in Colorado, where we both live, we talk a lot about dual enrollment or concurrent
Mhm.
enrollment. Being a consultant for college and high school, you've had to learn a lot about the ins and outs of legislation and
Mhm.
also how, if there are districts that want to do dual enrollment, how they need to go about that. And a lot of the time, we think about like college credits via an AP exam or an IB exam. How is the dual enrollment piece different, especially coming from your side of this college and high school?
Great question. And to just kind of lay the framework a little bit, it's dual enrollment, it's concurrent enrollment, it's running start in the state of Washington. So much of it,
Yeah,
it depends on where you live, and it depends
yeah.
on the legislation and how it was written. So um, I always tell families it's why I call my business college and high school because that's what it is at the end of the day. It's
Hmm.
college and high school programs, whether that's concurrent enrollment, dual enrollment, running start, whatever. But the big difference with a college and high school program, a dual enrollment, as you say, with AP, with IP, is no high stakes exam at the end.
Hmm.
And that's kind of a pillar and something I talk about a lot is with AP, with, programs like that, you're in a class like usually for an entire year. And then the only way to earn the college credit is to take the high stakes exam at the end of the class and hope you get a high enough score to get the college credit. And within this past, at this past, July,
Yeah.
is when AP scores came out. And I've talked with a lot of students and a lot of families that earned maybe an A in the class, but for whatever reason, they were just off on exam day. They weren't
Hmm.
they weren't at their best. Maybe they weren't feeling well. It's the long of a very, the end of a very long school year, and they got a two or they got a three. But the
Hmm.
universities they're looking at require a three or a four. So their college credit's kind of out, or so to speak. But with dual enrollment, what I love about it is there's no high stakes exam for students that just are not great test takers. And I know there's mounds of research, and we could debate that on a completely different podcast with so many other hosts and so many other folks on test taking. But truth of the matter is there are students that just are not, for whatever reason, great test takers.
Yeah.
They can do the material, they can, they can show you they know the material and they show you they are competent in that subject area, but you put a test in front of them and they just freeze, right?
Hmm.
So I've seen so many families in that case, whereas dual enrollment, you all you have to do is take the class, you pass the class, you get the college credit, and it's in one semester, half the year
Hmm.
versus a full year. So I see that. Granted, yeah, AP's been around forever, and there's certain standards and things like that to meet, but and I'm not totally opposed to AP in a sense. I think it serves its purpose, but the biggest thing I try to talk about a lot is, well, what if you knew about this other option called dual enrollment?
Hmm.
Like, and what I see is so many students, so many families haven't been it hasn't been discussed. It's not even a part of the conversation because AP is so well known, and maybe the high
Yeah.
school is really pushing AP for various reasons. That dual enrollment is very low on the totem pole to the point where it's not even discussed, and that's what I always try to do every day is just provide the simple things of did you if you knew this was an option, maybe you'd pursue it.
Yeah.
Maybe you do it in combination with your AP. Maybe you do dual enrollment altogether, so it's simply providing that awareness too. But that's what I love with the dual enrollment piece is it's not the high stakes exam. It's real bona fide college credit, without that exam.
Hmm. So when you've worked as sort of a guidance counselor, you've learned a lot about how um, in high schools, traditional high schools, um, people that are supposed to be helping students with social emotional needs end up often being the career guidance counselors. So
Yeah.
how has your framework changed maybe that job of counselors to focus kind of more on the career and then maybe have a different, social worker, counselor work on the
Mhm.
social emotional piece.
Absolutely. And we can't discount those social emotional pieces within our high schools. But I learned early on, 13 years ago when I started my academic advising journey, that we could not have school counselors to handle all those social emotional needs and expect them to um, promote what we were trying to do with dual enrollment with the college and career guides because it was way too much. It's
Mm,
just way too much. Colleges have separated it for the most part. You know, they have their equivalent school counselors for the social emotional piece, and then their academic advisors for that piece. We just took a page out of their book. Really,
mhm,
it is what we did because we knew if we were going to make this work. This is the plan. School counselors don't go to college to, learn how to be college and career guidance. There's very little, if any, coursework or discussion built around that. They're trained very, very well around the school counseling piece, the social emotional piece, and then given this very large job of, oh, by the way, we need you to walk a student down their post high school path, whatever that is,
yeah,
college, career, military, whatever it is. It's an incredible job. So it has to be separated. Budgets obviously are the biggest thing I run into when I touch the schools. We don't have the budget for it. We don't have the budget for it. We don't have the budget for it. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why families are not aware of other options
mhm,
outside of AP, outside of
yeah,
IB, various things like that, because they're simply not trained. Number one, and number two, they don't have the time. They
yeah,
literally do not have the time, especially post-pandemic, because the social emotional mental health challenges in our schools have just they've increased exponentially. So it's I try to show those schools, if you had a framework to go off of, here's what it could look like. The schools I see that are most successful have brought on specific college and career coaches or college and
mhm,
career advisors embedded within their high school. It's still a lot of work, but it's at least a little bit of progress towards that goal.
mhm,
Because the goal should always be, and what I do, what I did in my experience in the schools and what I do today with the families I connect with is filling their
mhm,
toolbox to the point where they can do my job.
yeah,
You know, I always coach my academic advisors on that piece. Your job as their academic advisor is to teach them how to do your job. And I always kind
mhm,
of look back like, well, they're gonna take my job. Like, what's going on? I'm like, no, you're missing the point. But the idea is that when they graduate, they know how to run the show. They
mhm,
know how to advocate for themselves. They know how to access the resources they need. So many of our students we see that melt once they get to college. It's not necessarily because of the academics. It's because of all the non-academic pieces. It's the
mhm,
things they were never taught, or their hand was held a little too long in
mhm,
high school to get them through, and they get to that point where they're on their own and they don't know how to expect it. And there's that divide still with our high schools and our colleges on the high schools holding their hand too long and the colleges just saying, well, they should know how to do that. Well, they were never taught.
mhm,
It's an easy fix in a lot of ways, but it takes time and it takes a certain dedication to be able to do that.
mhm, mhm. Well, I think, yeah, like you're saying, you're working with a lot, of your guidance counselors or advisors to
Hmm.
really inform families how to approach getting those college credits early.
Hmm.
So you have a kind of a catchphrase or slogan in terms of helping families realize how much they can save. So you've been known to say you could save $50,000 on college
Hmm.
without saving a dime. Tell me how that will
Hmm.
work.
Absolutely. And that $50,000 is not an arbitrary number.
Uh,
It's more of crunching the data a little bit. And when we look at the
okay.
data, Dana, we see that the average, and this is as of 23-24 school year,
Mhm,
data is always a little bit behind. But when we look at the average cost of a community college course
mhm,
is $300. So it's
mhm,
a 3 credit college course. It's about $300. Now, obviously, there are states like California that it's free in many ways. Other states that are even higher than the 300. But and on average, it's $300.
Hmm.
When you look at that same community, that same college class, and when I say the same college class, I'm talking about your gen eds, your basics, those 100 and 200 level courses that every student has to take once they get to college. You probably remember, Dana. I remember certainly whether you want to be an engineer, a teacher, a doctor, a nurse, a graphic designer, a fashion, whatever it is, you're still taking those Englishes and maths and histories and sciences and things like that. On average, a 4-year public university around our nation, the average cost of a 3 credit college course is $2,500.
Hmm.
So if we compound that $2,500 with the number of courses that are typically in a gen ed, usually about 60 credits, half that bachelor's degree,
Hmm.
it equals $50,000. So the idea with saving 50,000 on college without saving a dime,
Yeah.
it's going through programs like dual enrollment. It's going through early college programs that typically will, pay for everything. And
Hmm.
when you factor in that you're saving all that money because you're not having to take an English class or history class or math or whatever after
Hmm.
high school at that $2,500 average,
Hmm.
you do that enough and you get that 2 years of college. It's how you can save 50,000. Now, that's just the average. There are colleges that you can save thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars more because their price point is incredibly high.
Hmm.
So that's kind of where that $50,000 kind of comes into play. It's not an arbitrary number. It's really just looking at the data and when I talk to families, I say, I know this class is $300 and you're in high school, and that is not that's a big chunk of change. I fully understand that. But what if you could pay $300 now so you could save 2,000, $2,200 later because you're not having to pay for it. You're not having to take out student loans. You're not having to tap into your 529 college savings plan, and you can set that aside. And that's how you can really save a lot.
Hmm. Hmm. Let's switch a bit to college debt. So, tell me about like how much debt students usually leave when they leave college with a bachelor's degree, and how doing dual enrollment will help lower that debt.
Yeah, great question. So the interesting thing about college debt is there's not any concrete data on how much, unless you're looking at it college specific, and there are 3,000 colleges around the nation, so it's hard to
Hmm.
quantify it. But looking at college debt as far as just taking out debt, regardless if you graduate, on average, a student's going to take out $29,000 in student loan debt. 29,000 just to get through to college. Um, I've pitched this a lot lately, and recently we've had the one big beautiful bill come out with all the new restrictions on loan caps and parent plus loans and grad schools and things like that. And I I I don't promote it in a sense, but I look at it in the sense of you don't need student loans to go to college to get a bachelor's degree, to get an undergraduate degree. I'm a firm believer you do not need student loans to do that. But what a lot of students and a lot of families don't realize is they feel like they're forced to do
Yeah.
it. They're sold a bill of goods in a sense because it's very difficult, Dana, to determine how much college will actually cost you. You can
Mhm.
look at what's called a net price calculator on every college's website and determine about this is how much college should cost me. But until you
Mhm.
get that first bill, that spring semester of their senior year in high school, that shows maybe you got this scholarship, maybe you got this grant that you don't have to pay back, but your out of pocket is still $15,000. And you approach the college and say, I don't have $15,000.
Mhm.
That's when they show you, well, here's the student loan and it's $15,000 and you can take it out. And that's how they kind of get you in a sense,
Yeah.
right? It's forcing them into, well, I'm committed to this college. I've already decided I want to go. It's my dream school, all these things. I guess I'll just have to take out the loan. But with dual enrollment, you can avoid those things because what a lot of families do is my whole job. Can you get a bachelor's degree through dual enrollment? Yeah, you can. There are
Mhm.
certain schools, and that's another conversation for another day. But my approach is really getting those gen eds, getting those classes that everybody has to take no matter what,
Mhm.
getting those done while you're in high school through a program like dual enrollment, through community college, if you're doing it on your own or you're a homeschool student or whatever that might look like, it's how you can save thousands and tens of thousands of dollars up to that $50,000 mark that we just talked about
Mhm.
because you're saving money in the front end. You're not
Hmm.
having to have that money or take out those loans ahead of time. Once you get to college, to take the English 101 or the History 101 or the college algebra or whatever, you get those done while you're in high school through a dual enrollment program. That's how you're saving money because now you can maybe slow down a little bit. You don't have to
Hmm.
take a 15 to 18 credit load. Um, if you have a 529 plan, you haven't had to tap into that for your gen eds, and you can save those dollars for those major specific courses, that you couldn't get through dual enrollment or through community college. So it's really just it's using the information, it's using the resources that are readily available
Hmm.
that so many families just don't know are available because, like I said at the beginning, it's our high schools have spent so much time and it's been so entrenched in them to prepare them for college. Here's the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid.
Hmm.
Here's this. Go. And it's been pitched as the only avenue when it's not. It absolutely isn't.
Yeah, yeah. Like you said, a lot of the funneling goes to the same place, and people get awarded loans really pretty easily, and they
Oh, Dana.
then, they don't
Yeah.
think about like the whole having to pay it back. And but there's a way to not have to take a ton of loan. And even if you do go to college after you get an associate's degree in high school, you could still do the work study. You could have a job outside of the college, and not have to really have any loans. So
It opens up options, and that's what I show families and even schools is I don't know your individual situation. Every individual situation is different. But if anything, what dual enrollment does do is it opens up opportunities. It opens up options. You're not beholden to I have to take out this student loan, otherwise I can't go to college.
yeah.
And then we have the conversations about, well, is this a school you can afford? And I get into my speech about, for the most part, it does not matter where you go to college.
Hmm.
Like, once you get that job, it's proving what you know and what you can do. And but the student loan piece is, you mentioned it a little bit. Student loans are one of the easiest things to get that is
Hmm.
tied to money.
Yeah.
No credit check, no background check, no income verification, unless maybe you're getting like a parent loan. But for a regular student loan, it takes like 60 seconds. It's crazy. And then
Hmm.
you sign a promissory note, and that's it. Welcome to college. It's one of the easiest things. But so many families do not know that impact or that future impact, like you said,
Hmm.
of what it can do and the interest you have to pay back and the terms and just all these. Not to mention, you still have to pay the money back even if you don't graduate.
Hmm.
I talked to a lot of families that are kind of shocked by that. They're like, well, you mean if something happens and I can't finish my degree and I have these loans, I still have to pay them back? Yeah, they're gonna call you in 6 months or send an
Yeah.
email or letter in 6 months after you say you're done and expect payment. Like this is how it works. So that's another reason I love dual enrollment so much. Is it's trying to avoid and be beholden to that lender. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned that there's a small book with tips that you'll be releasing.
Mhm.
Is that already out or?
It's not. It's going to be out soon.
Okay.
It's going to be kind of I like to tell a lot of stories. So one of the stories I told you about, that student is going to be in it. But it's really kind of a simple framework, a simple blueprint on how to do this journey. I become a more and more active in recent months on TikTok of all social
Hmm.
media platforms, and have released some very small, $15 and $20 price point
Okay.
audio courses where it's a step by step. One of them is the College and High School 101 Masterclass, that walks you step by step how to go to college and high school, especially if you're getting restrictions or limitations from your high school. This shows you how to do it yourself.
Hmm.
Um, Another thing, and I know we didn't touch on it, but something else I really like about a college and high school program is the Klepp exam, college level examination
Hmm.
program. 2-hour test, 34 different subject areas. You can get college credit, just like that. And it's kind of ironic because it's overseen by the College Board, who also oversees AP. But it's a great way to get college credit. I have a small guide there, on my website as well. But all in all, it really comes down to a strategy,
Yeah.
Dana, and whatever the college and high school piece is that families desire to do, you have to have a strategy.
Mm,
I talk a lot about it in the courses and then even in the upcoming book on what is your why, your
mhm,
WHY. You've got to have a why, not only for the student, for the child, but for the parent as well. Why do you want
mhm,
to do this? It can't just be just to do it. Like,
mhm.
is it to save money? Is it to save time? Is it to prevent from taking out loans? Is it because your high school isn't challenging you? Is it, it can be a number of things, but it's very individualized, to that student, to that parent. So those are pieces I talk about it as well in the courses and then in the upcoming book.
Great, great. Well, we'll talk in a minute about where people can find you, but out of everything we've talked about in terms of saving money for college, dual enrollment piece, and really getting started with college and high school, out of everything we talked about, what's one thing you'd like listeners to remember?
To reimagine high school. It's
Yeah,
something I talk about a lot. And it's kind of become kind of a tagline. I end a lot of my short form videos and long form videos and any sort of written communication I have is we're at a point where you deserve as a student, as a family, to reimagine high school,
yeah,
to not have to go through a traditional step by step. This is how we've always done high school.
yeah.
Get in line, check the box, graduate, move on. Because high school should be so much more, and it can be so much more. It truly can. But with the reimagine high school piece, it's asking a lot of questions of your high school, of your school counselors, of your principals, of whomever, will help you through a college and high school program, whatever that might look like. But if they're not doing it at that point or you're not satisfied, also know there are options. And your best options are those community colleges or the Klepp exams or various things like that. So you can reimagine what high school looks like to you.
But where can people find you online and get some of your resources?
Absolutely. So I'm primarily on TikTok these days. My handle's at college in high school and the number one.
Okay.
I just about the vast majority of anything tagged under dual enrollment are my videos, so pretty easy to find. I don't have a lot of hair, Dana, so that's pretty easy to find in my black rim glasses. So there you go. But that's one of the biggest thing. I'm also on LinkedIn as well, occasionally under my name. But it's growing. People are getting. I'm happy to. I'm happy that families are becoming aware of this every day, and I absolutely love every day getting comments and DMs on. I never knew this existed. Thank you so much. Like that
Mhm.
right there. Or I got one the other day, and it was I went to my counselor. I asked them the question, the very simple question on what you recommended, and they gave me a bunch of resources. And now I'm going to be able to start my college and high school journey, this next fall. Like that right there is what it's all about. I go live quite often as well.
Mhm.
TikTok has that ability, so I'm live and welcome any sort of questions or feedback or stories. I love hearing student and family stories because that feeds, others that are in the comments or others that come across my content because maybe that family, that student can relate to somebody else that they've never met that's across the country maybe. And I love that. I have that joy. I love that joy of being able to bring people together as well.
Great, great. Well, I'll make sure I include all these links in the show notes. And like you said, hopefully by listening to this episode or students or parents seeing some of your posts, they can find out that there are other options because like you made that point of there's so many counselors in high schools that are overwhelmed with all the other duties, and a lot of students and families aren't aware of these options if they're not promoted. So, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge about concurrent enrollment and avoiding the large amount of student debt.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me on, Dana.